when I look back, any time that I was playing at the very top of my game, it was always when I felt free, when I felt calm. That's why I bring it back to self-belief is like, if you have that self-belief, everything kind of flows from that as well, which is something that you kind of have to learn over time and develop. And it is a skill, and it's one of those ones where it's like, we talk about those 1%ers all the time.
Yep.
Which what makes a difference in anything in life.
Yep.
Those 1%ers.
Guys, welcome back to the Elevated Athlete Podcast. I got a great mate of mine, ex-professional footballer. That sounds weird to say. And ex-Socceroo, Ollie Bozanic. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, mate. It's great to be here.
We always start with our guests, 2 deep breaths. I feel like wherever someone's listening to this from, it's always a nice thing to reset. So we're just going to do 2 deep breaths together. Inhale.
Okay.
Exhale. One more. Inhale. Exhale. Good to go. Congratulations on the recent retirement, mate. Having been around you for the last few years, and particularly the last few months, I know it was something you thought about a lot. How's it feel having it out in the public now?
Yeah, it feels good. I think it comes a point in every athlete's career where it does come to an end, and it's also good to have that moment where you can put it out there and really kind of draw a line in the sand there and say, look, yeah, that's the end of my professional career.
Yep.
And then it just opens the doors to kind of what's next and allows you to move forward.
What's life like now?
It's good. Life's good. A lot of time with the family now and the kids, and bit of exploration myself in trying to find what I really want to do next. Really niche down to what I want to do. But in the meantime, I'm exploring different options and of course, doing a lot within coaching as well still, which is a big part of my life to stay involved in football and be a part of it.
You're doing I know you've been doing a little bit of commentary work. How are you doing that?
Yeah, I've really been enjoying that as well. I've been able to work a little bit on the media side of football, and it's been nice to be around it and see how that operates as well. And really stay close to the game.
What was it like growing up playing football?
Growing up playing football was for me was great. It's changed a lot over the years though. Growing up, I think on the Central Coast was always very rugby league based. Other codes kind of based. So it wasn't. I didn't feel like it was as big as it is now for the juniors. But it was for me it was great. I got to play locally for a few years on the coast for Avoca Sharks, and up until about 10 years old, I was playing for them, and then moved into like the rep football side of things, and started to progress into the higher levels.
Your father was an ex-Socceroo. What's it like? What was life like growing up having a father that played? Obviously being around the professional scene, going to games, I'm assuming. But talk to me about your experience having a father that played professional.
Yeah, that was obviously a big part of my early development in football. The first memories of me playing is always it's with my dad, with my brother and sister, and it all started from that, I guess, because he played, and it was just as soon as I was able to walk, I had a ball in front of my foot, and I was able to start practicing and learning the skills of the game and developing on that side. He was a huge influence on that side. I think it was something that I look back on with very fond memories, because not everyone gets that opportunity to have someone with such a skill level being able to teach you from such an early age.
Externally or maybe internally, did that create any expectation, or was it more of an empowerment thing having a father that reached the heights he did?
I never thought of it like that in any way. I was just very focused ever since I was as young as I can remember. I always wanted to be a professional footballer, like as young as I can remember. So it was something that I had from a very, very young age, that this is what I wanted to be. And it was always that question of like, what do you want to do when you're older? And everyone, when you grow up, what do you want to be? What do you want to do? And for me, it was always, I wanted to be a professional footballer. I wanted to play overseas. I wanted to to be the best professional footballer I could be.
How was your father as you transitioned over to England when you were, I think, 18, was it? Did your father, how was he in helping you make that decision and I guess encourage you to go after that?
Yeah, exactly. We would watch the Premier League and watch European leagues on TV in those early years, and you could know and see this is where the best football is being played in the world, and this is the level that you want to kind of achieve and reach. But yeah, I was also very fortunate as well at a young age that the club that I was playing for at the time, Parramatta Melita in Sydney, they had a link with Manchester United. And at the time, they were, the biggest team in the world. One of the biggest teams in the world. With you had Beckham, you had Roy Keane, you had all these guys like
Rooney?
Giggs.
Not quite?
Just yet. Led by Sir Alex Ferguson, one of the greatest managers of all time, and I had that early exposure to go over and trial with my age group under 14s at the time.
That's cool.
So that early exposure for an Australian kid to see what the very best level is like really is it's an eye opener, and it makes you think like, okay, this is where I need to be, this is what I need to work on, and then you obviously you take that knowledge, go back and really start to work on that side of your game.
When you were over there, when you were 18, what made you come back and not pursue England or Europe more from that age? What made you come back to Australia?
So I went over when I actually was supposed to go over a bit earlier at 16. I was supposed to start the youth development then at 16 with Reading FC. I then later went over at 18. It was just more of a rule within Australia that you couldn't leave until you were a certain age, so I had to wait until I was 18. So once I was able to go over there, I had that first kind of professional step at Reading FC. And for me, the move to come back to Australia was really fueled around the coach that took over at the Mariners to bring me back in, which was Graham Arnold. So he obviously had a lot of faith in me to bring me back and to give me the opportunity to prove myself here in Australia in the A-League, and it worked out really well, and we were very successful in that period of time, winning the championship, and yeah, just a fantastic moment in the Central Coast Mariners history, but also for myself at a young age to get exposure to that as well, and have the trust from that manager to bring me back, and with the forward thinking to getting me back overseas as well was always my mindset, but also the conversation with him around that as well was also the big point for me to come back and then step forward again. Because I think sometimes if you pursue something like that overseas and you keep pursuing it where it's not working out for that period of time, it's not necessarily a backward step. I think you always need to keep moving forward. It might be a sideward step, because at the end of the day, like, football is completely based on obviously your skill level, your mental capacity. All of this is the real big factors as to why you succeed as well. But sometimes it does come down to opinions within the game, and certain directions a coach and a club might want to go. So if you don't fit that mold, the best thing you can do at these certain times is to find the place and the club that really values you as a player, and move forward, because it's such a short career when you look back and see like how quickly it does really go. So we really have to make the most of it, and it's about making those decisions at the right time to help you progress your career.
You lost a grand final for the Mariners, is that right?
Yeah.
You scored a late goal.
Yeah.
I think it was the 103rd minute or something I saw.
Yeah.
And
So
then
we went to extra time, where we took the lead in that game, and then unfortunately went to penalties and we weren't successful in that.
how old were you then?
I think 21.
Yep. You went on to win a grand final. Talk to me about the grand final week. and the experiences, playing in the grand final and coming away with the championship?
So with the second one?
With the second one, sorry, I think was that 2012, 2013
Yeah.
season?
Yeah. Yeah, so the week kind of what was it?
What was the week like, grand final week? In other sports, say rugby league, it's quite a big week leading into it.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Yeah, it was the same. It's a big week leading in. It's a few years ago now, so I have to remember back to the week leading in. But yeah, I'm pretty sure we had a few days training down in Sydney as well before the game. Maybe it was 1 or 2 days. But yeah, it's just a big moment. You've worked all season, and being unsuccessful a season before, not going all the way, not winning it, you really do have that whole season, that whole off season. The A-League has a very long off season as well, so there's a lot of time to, think about, what has happened, and obviously then prepare for what's next. But then going into that week, it was all about, yeah, I guess, good preparation and continuing on what you're doing well in that season, and really, I think if you remain focused on your week to week, and yeah, externally things change and it's a big moment and everything like that. The enormity of the stage is bigger, but if you're keeping the same mindset as you are leading into the games before, I think you have a much better mindset leading into that game as well.
Do you have a similar lineup from the year before as to the same team that went on to win?
I think it was, yeah, similar, similar team. There was obviously some new players that we had within that team. New players come in every season, but yeah, similar.
You had the luxury of playing in many competitions globally. What competition do you regard as the peak of your career?
I'll definitely say the World Cup.
Yep.
Internationally.
Yep.
That's where you want to, every player wants to play at the very top of any sport or any game that they're in.
Yep.
And for me, that was like, yeah, the pinnacle, obviously, to play in the World Cup. And yeah, I'd say, yeah, World Cup. And then if we look at leagues, I really enjoyed my time in Switzerland as well, and in Scotland as well. So
Yeah.
yeah.
What do you think you touched on it before around England. What do you think it is about the academy programs or the training layouts that produce those world-class footballers that we just don't have? What do you feel like is the difference? Is it just it's the raw passion for the game, like is it on another level?
I wouldn't say it's like the passion for the game. One, it's the number one sport there as well. So everyone wants to play it, be at the games, watch it. So that's obviously filters more people into the sport as well. But I do believe like their whole setup from, if you're at a Premier League club all the way down to the junior level, it's all one club. They're all moving in the same direction.
Oh,
So it's like with the A-League right now, we have, obviously it filters down a little bit, but the professionalism over there and the finances to back that as well is just so far ahead of any other nation, I think, where, yeah, they're just producing players very young and just having good structure and good setup. And, once you get to a certain age, you're going to school there at the club as well. So you're getting your schooling, you're getting your academy development there. And obviously the level of coaching that you're getting as well is at a very high level. So they're obviously employing very good coaches at that younger level too, which is a good step for them to, coach and then progress up to the first team for themselves as well. So it's just, I think it's just a good system that they have running over there, and obviously that just, it costs a lot of money as well. So yeah, they have the backing of the finances to be able to do that as well.
you mentioned the Scottish League before we go through one of the goals of your career. Just talk to me about the atmosphere. We've spoken a lot about this off air, but what's the atmosphere like in these leagues when you look at the crowds?
It's pretty crazy, like we're pretty passionate supporters here in Australia. I think we get behind our teams, our sport, but yeah, over there it's just like it's full on. They kind of live and die by it. So yeah, it's pretty amazing, being a part of that. And it doesn't matter if you're playing top of the table, you're playing someone in the division below, or you're playing a cup game, all the fans turn out every week to support their team, and it really becomes like, you know, the supporters over there, like it's just part of their life to support that team, their local team as well.
Could be wrong, but do you reckon the Wanderers are the closest thing to it? Their fan base seems pretty passionate in Australia. Not what would you say, like an army vibe
Yeah.
kind of feeling?
There's a couple of clubs that have had it, especially over the years. You know, you look at Melbourne Victory as well.
Okay.
A few seasons ago, they had, you know, some of the biggest turnouts and supporters. Sydney FC at times as well, Wanderers at times. So there's definitely, it's definitely there to bring it to a new level as well.
Yeah.
And you know, it's something that football fans want to see, is like we want more supporters at the game as well, and getting behind it. And because I think as well that makes the atmosphere when you
Yeah.
play overseas, when you go see a game in the Premier League or in Scotland or in Europe, you know, the crowd as well really makes the game too.
Sure.
You know, obviously you got the highest of level footballers playing
Yeah.
on the pitch, which they're coming out to watch. But the atmosphere as well at times is a big part of the event too. So that's also a big part of it.
The chanting. I remember watching
Yeah,
the
for sure.
documentary. I think it was on the LA Lakers, from the guy that sort of made the LA Lakers who they are, and he was like the founder of turning sporting events into like almost festivals to a
Yeah.
degree, right? And I feel like you looked at back COVID, you could definitely tell like the dead atmosphere in some places. We're going to pull up on the screen your goal. I want us to talk to me. We can play it from the start. Talk to me about this goal in Scotland. Where were you? How did you sort of see it unfolding?
Well, it's a derby, okay? So you got the Edinburgh Derby, Hearts versus Hibs, and this game is just like it's a must win for both teams. It's the biggest, you know, one of the biggest games of the season to play in. And doesn't matter if you're playing home or away, you're going there to win. Both teams are going for that. So yeah, it was just you know, I think it was, I'm actually can't remember what moment it was in the game. One of the other midfielders actually said, "Push on here. There's a good opportunity to get into the box here." So I've moved forward, and then it's Boise that was in front of me. That's done a little step over for me. I was running up behind him. I just said, you know, like, let it go, leave it for me.
Oh,
Yeah,
you communicate that to him?
yeah, it was just kind of in the moment. Like I was just I was letting him know that I was there behind him. And as you can see, like he's kind of just moved towards it, stepped over it, and then it just sat perfectly for me to hit it. And yeah, it just perfectly went in, I guess. And it was you know, amazing to be right in front of the in front of the fans there to score the goal.
Was that at your home ground?
No, this was away. So
Oh, okay.
this whole back end of the stadium was filled with Hearts supporters. So
Do they travel?
that as well, yeah. Well, it's only you know 5 minutes down the road.
Oh,
It's between the two stadiums. So
yeah.
you know, it's a big derby, and it's a big part of the Scottish Football League.
We spoke a little bit about it before with the World Cup. How did you find out you're going to be a part of the World Cup? And talk to me about those moments, whether you got the call or whatever, when you found out you're going to be a part of that experience.
Yeah, so I think it was I was part of the Socceroos leading into the World Cup, but at the time I still wasn't 100% sure. You know, we had a big squad going into the World Cup, and I wasn't, yeah, as I said, I wasn't 100% sure if I was going to make the final numbers. And it wasn't till very late on it kind of got cut down. Then we traveled as a team to Brazil. We had a big pre-camp in Australia here as well, and then we traveled to Brazil, and then again it wasn't the final numbers, so there was a couple of players that actually left from Brazil. So
Oh,
yeah, it was kind of like a
shit.
yeah, it was and this is just all like
There's a bit of a tease.
yeah, I guess in football, you know, you just start to become so immune to the pressure of the game. You know, you got to make that team, then you got to move to then we travel over together, and you feel like, you know, this is it, I've made it here. But then there was still a few numbers still to be cut from the team there, and then yeah, I was part of the team, and yeah, one of the most amazing parts of my career and experience being in a part of it.
What was that like? You know, Brazil, I feel like everyone, whether it's football or not, knows Brazil to be,
Yeah.
you know, just crazy soccer and you crazy football fans.
Yeah.
What was the experience like between the security, the buses, the fans? I can only imagine how that's probably the biggest event Brazil's had maybe in its life, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, like Brazil's just a nation of football, and they just love it. So
Yeah.
they even in their league as well, they're so passionate, and they have fans turning out to massive games. So they're pretty used to that level of attention around football, I guess. Uh, but yeah, it was something on another level. Obviously, you're in camp for a long period of time, and you kept you got your training ground, and you've got your games that you attend, and you're pretty well looked after and secluded in that event, and you're just fully focused, I guess, immersing yourself in that moment to do the best you can for your country.
I looked it up. Did you play in the games against Spain and Netherlands, was it?
Yeah.
Talk to me about, like, just that caliber of football and the opposition that you versed. Like, how does that feel when you're on the field in those moments? Like, was there a distinct, like, obviously as athletes, you want to go out, do your best. You feel like you can get the job done. And then there's also like plays where they're playing in some pretty elite competitions around the world as well. Talk to me about that experience coming up against some of those players that you come up against.
Yeah, I think it kind of goes to, like, the moment, like, when I got the opportunity to come on in the second game against Holland. It was just like, yeah, the feeling I had behind it, like, yes, I've made it onto, I made it onto the pitch. This is where I wanna be. This is the biggest stage of football. It was kind of around that, and I guess also the manager for the Socceroos at the time was Ange Postecoglou, and kind of the things that he instilled in us was really like that self belief. That you sit down before the game, and he has his speech, and, like, I think every player wants to run through a brick wall for him. So he has that effect on players as well, which is such a good trait as a manager.
Yep.
But then to lead into that. I feel like it's important to have people like that in the game that give that energy and that belief in their players to go out and prove themselves, and I feel like that's how, like, he wanted us to play as well, and I think you could see that on the pitch as well.
Being on the pitch, could you feel the difference in quality?
Yeah, I think we, as Aussies, I've spoken about this before, where growing up, it's because we're so far away from the best in the world in terms of Europe, being so far away, from us in Australia. We want to, we put that on another level, which it is on another level. But when you're in that moment, and you've prepared for it, and you're playing against these teams, there's actually not that much of a difference.
No.
It's sometimes you need to, and that's why I said before, it's good to have a coach like Ange, where he instilled that in us, that we are good enough to be here, and we can really match it with the best in the world. And
Yep.
and I think that's just the next evolution of Australian football and Socceroos is to really take that on and believe in it, and keep pushing the country to a new level.
Sort of moves into my next question, which is, you've played at obviously the highest of heights. In your eyes, what separates the good from the great? Because I think there's a lot of good athletes in Leeds, but there's very few great athletes. What do you feel like separates them?
Yeah, once again, it's a great question. I think it is that self-belief. If I could just kind of narrow it down to one thing,
Yep.
I'd probably say that's self-belief.
And obviously that's going to show up in the difference between slightly holding back out of fear and not slightly holding back in fear. I talk to a lot of athletes, and I'd love to get your feedback, but talking to a lot of athletes, what makes like them great is maybe 2 or 3 moments in a performance where they just went after it a little bit more than someone else, and didn't have maybe that little bit of fear in the back of their mind, or that little bit of hesitation.
Yeah. I guess it's like overthinking, not being present.
Yeah.
When you're in that moment, and I think we've touched on this before. Outside of this, is like that flow state is like a lot of people talk about that flow state, and it's easy to kind of explain it if you've experienced it and been in it. It's a lot harder to to chase after it. I think.
Yeah.
It's probably something you can touch on a little bit more, I guess.
Well, It's interesting to remind me that you wanted to have a conversation off air about it, but I feel like flow state is from what I've spoken to with a lot of athletes, is a lot of athletes try and force or find flow state, but I think flow state is just the result of being clear, simple, and decluttered.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so then when athletes realize they're not present or realize they're not in flow, they create frustration and resistance to the fact they're not in those states, and then they never get into those states.
Yeah.
And I think in sport in general, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, is a lot of managers or a lot of coaching staff will use these words without providing any practicality of achieving it. And so they use these words, but these words like presence and flow state are just results of a state of mind.
Yeah.
And so I feel like coming back to like, what do we need to do to put our mind in that state? And such by doing that, we just achieve a flow state.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I saw one post you put up. I think it was can you explain that one to me again? I think it's neutral.
Minus neutral plus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I sort of kind of link those two together where it's like, yeah, you want to, when you're playing as an athlete, you want to be in that, that middle zone where you're not over either side. You just want to be present in that moment, which is, part of your process, I guess, as to how you get to that point. But yeah, that was when I look back, any time that I was playing at the very top of my game, it was always when I felt free, when I felt calm, and that's why I bring it back to self-belief is like, if you have that self-belief, everything kind of flows from that as well.
Flows from it.
Which is something that you kind of have to learn over time and develop, and it is a skill, and it's one of those ones where it's like, we talk about those 1%ers all the time.
Yep.
Which what makes a difference in anything in life.
Yep.
Those 1%ers. But yeah, I guess if you can nail that earlier on in your career and be able to continue to develop it, because they're all kind of like skills, like the skills that you provide and other people provide. They just add a different dimension to your game and help you kind of progress. If you get a little bit stuck somewhere, or if you're having a bad patch, you can always go back and lean on those skills to take you forward again.
I didn't plan for this question, but as we spoke, when we looked at self-belief and sort of, I'm speaking out loud, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, it's professional sport is so cutthroat, right? And 1 or 2 players in every team, maybe even 3 players, will have a decent deal on the table where there's a security and a foundation blanket there. You can definitely see and understand why and how hard it is for athletes to fully back themselves and not have that element of hesitation, knowing they don't have a contract on the table. Were you ever in that experience? And if so, what advice do you have?
Yeah, for sure. Like, there's been plenty of times during my career where things weren't working out at a certain club, or there were moments where you have external pressure. But it was always like, for me, I bring it back to, I talk about self-belief, but also bring it back to, why you started this game as well. And it's because it's an element of fun as well, and enjoyment. And it's like, that's why we started this game, because we love the game. And so I think if you drift away too far from the love of what you do, the love of the game, you'll also feel the effects of everything else on top of that.
Yep.
So, anytime during my career, I, fully focused on just the football. Everything outside of that, tended to look after itself and work out for the better. Not that I wasn't focused or trying to improve those areas of my life and game, but it would always come back to, the self-belief, and the belief around what I was doing, and enjoying that moment, enjoying football, and being able to play freely as well.
As you sort of developed into your career and became more experienced, you obviously led the Mariners, and you became a leader in the teams that you're a part of. How would you firstly describe leadership for yourself? And secondly, who helped you become a leader along the way? What mentors guided you?
Yeah, that's another good question, mate. I think a leader is someone that looks at putting, in team sport, is someone that looks at the team as a whole and the team first, and and providing the team the best opportunity to succeed, and sometimes putting themselves behind, not in a way that you're going to be detrimental to your performance or your game, but you've got more of a focus on the total team rather than just yourself.
Mm.
When you're not a captain or you're not a leader within that team, your sole focus is on you performing better so you can perform as well as you can to help the team.
Mm.
In that leadership role, your focus is on performing really well yourself, but it's also about helping others around you. And it comes back to, if the team's successful, more times than not, you will also be successful as a player. It's a role that you kind of have to take on, knowing as well that it's it's a big expectations to lead a team and to help them to succeed, and you have to have that mindset of I'm also here to help others, to help others to succeed so that we are as a team successful.
I can imagine it's a challenging piece, when you've got younger players coming through the squad. Between, obviously having that team first and always coming back to that as the number one priority, but also how did you find that balance to be firm and to be compassionate and
Yeah.
not overdo each of those?
Yeah, I think it's something you have to like learn as you're doing. You're gonna have moments where you have to, obviously encourage players when they're down, or others when they need it, but also you have to demand more from others when. I think it's more based around expectations as well. It's like, if you feel as a leader, if you feel like the team isn't being, they're not as successful right now, can we break it down to like, why is it not happening, and what areas of the game this is happening, and it really comes down to day-to-day activities as well. Training, are we preparing right every single way? Like, are the individuals preparing right as well? Are they looking after themselves? Are they sleeping well, eating well, preparing to come into training? That's even before you start training. And then it's like, is each individual putting in 100% at training as well? That's kind of like a big one. And you look at the best teams in the world, and it's always based around like, make sure that you as a player are giving everything you can for that team to succeed as well.
Who helped you guide the way you led, like over the years? Who guided you?
I think it's just, being around, other people that I've worked with, and other coaches and captains, and the way people, I kind of see people interact and lead. And I think you always take a little bit from everyone, and learn, and then put it into your own way of doing it.
Imagine overcoming mistakes in under 15 seconds and staying locked into the game under the highest pressures. As an athlete on the rise, the pressure to perform at the highest level is relentless. And without a reliable system to regulate your emotions and focus, it's easy to get stuck in a cycle of frustration. That's where the 15-second reset ritual comes in. It's a tailored 3-step process designed to help you recover from mistakes in seconds, allowing you to regain your focus and confidence mid-game. Inside this free 25-minute training, I'm going to help you design a tailored 3-step process that works specifically for you. For free instant access, click the link in the show notes below. Throughout your career, when did training the mind, or when did you start to recognize that the mind was just as powerful as the body?
Yeah, I kind of had a pretty big interest in it from early on. I can't remember exactly when. It would just be doing some research around it, and then eventually just working with a few sports psychologists and neuroscientists, and other people within that world that helped to kind of put a focus on it as well.
Football, correcting myself there, sorry. Football, the stoppages isn't as much as, you could almost have a touch and have a touch straight away, right? In comparison to, let's say, rugby league, you could have a touch, but then you get back to the center position, and it might take a while to then get back into the play.
Yeah.
So meaning, like, in your response to an error, you could quickly need to be back on the ball fast. Did you develop, or did you have a process for yourself mentally that allowed you to overcome, an error and bounce back and be effective as quickly as possible? And if so, do you mind sharing that?
Yeah, it was just kind of, as I said, I started to work with some of these people, and I think it was important for me because, like, yeah, you see players, and it happened to me as well, where you kind of, in a game when you're younger and earlier on in your career, you give a ball away, and then maybe you'll give another ball away, and then another ball away, and you get into a little bit of a loop. So I think it's like for a player, and for myself, it was just like identifying that moment and then just having a quick trigger to be like, okay, let's go. Let's, flicker the fingers, or, a word that you might have, to really just put you back
Yeah.
into that moment, and then go again. And then, more times than not, when as we discussed, it's like, it's a skill that you need to develop and practice. Once you get good at it, it just becomes autonomous and
Yeah.
just becomes a habit for you.
Absolutely. And it's really about like reining in the mind so it doesn't get carried away, and like having a pattern interrupt that can go, oh, yep, sweet, and act as a reminder. Because really, you don't have long at all in a game
No,
to,
no.
and
Well,
you
that's the
don't have
thing.
the luxury of being out of the game for long either.
No, exactly. Well, that's the thing. Like, you might lose the ball, but if you have that less than a second reaction to be back in the moment, and to, you might lose the ball, but if you have the quick enough reaction, you might win the ball back. And then from there, you're back in the game, and you can then play that pass that you were trying to, or, if you let it slip, you could lose the ball. Then you throw your hands up in the air, or whatever the reaction is.
Yep.
And then, you're out of the game for, 5 seconds, and 5 seconds is, they could run to the other end and score a goal.
We were talking about the minus neutral plus before, and minus having no momentum, plus having momentum, and plus also can work against you because it can create complacency, and in the middle being neutral. I notice a lot of athletes, and speaking to a lot of athletes, is when they make a mistake or make an error, how fast and how they overcompensate to try and regain momentum fast. Did you notice that, where you would make a mistake and almost try and get back momentum too fast and overplay your hand?
Yeah, I think that's what we just, talked about there, where you might give away a pass, and then you might try and do it again, and you've gone for, like, that final pass. It might be the through ball to score the goal, and
Yep.
and it's just really about, like, and I think, coaches talk about it as well, where it's like, yeah, maybe you might give one ball away, but just, yeah, get back into the rhythm of it, and just, like, play that next simple pass, and start to build yourself back up into the game. So, yeah, it's kind of, yeah, it's, if you can have that skill, it's a big part of your game that you can really fix those errors, that kind of unnecessary errors, once
Yeah.
you get the grips of it.
Like, I often say the only mistake is not responding to the mistake,
Mm,
but doing your best not to let one small moment turn into three bad moments, or three
yeah,
negative moments.
yeah.
As you look back in your career, what are three major highlights that really stand out that you'll never forget? There's obviously a bunch, but what are the three big ones that you feel like stand out to you?
Uh, well, one, the World Cup.
Yep.
Playing and representing my country, that was always a dream for me as a kid, to reach the heights. Coming from the Central Coast, and just reaching the very top in my game. Playing in the World Cup was always, my biggest goal, and number one for me to attain. I always wanted to play overseas as well, play as high as possible. So that was the other one. And then, I guess, later on, being able to lead teams, as a captain, and being able to help others to reach their best performances as well.
You can go back to your 18-year-old self flying over the Reading on the plane and knowing what you know now. What advice would you give him?
A whole lot, a whole lot. Yeah, I think, at that young age, you're still developing a lot in every single way. So, yeah, I think I would have definitely said to myself, try to work on those skills earlier on. Um, Being able to deal with setbacks, being able to, manage certain things in life as well. Like, I think that would be one big lesson I would, kind of teach myself, knowing what I know now.
Yep.
But at the same time, we're on this path, and it's all about the journey as well, and learning. So, it's the same thing now. Someone could say to you that's 50 or 60, "Hey, you should do this now." And you look at it and say, like,
You struggle to onboard it.
yeah, yeah, it's always the way, like, you have to learn something yourself
Yep.
before you really take it on.
To finish off with, obviously, you're a father of three. What's it like when you look back on those photos and you see Bozanic on the back of your daughter's shirts? You know, you're able to pull them over the sheds,
Mm.
over the barrier and have them on the field. You know, what's that moment like where you're able to have your daughters on the field with you?
Yeah, that's obviously a very, very special moment for me. Like to still be playing with young kids and being able to have them on the pitch and experience that side to the game as well is very, very special for me as well.
What's that mean?
Oh, the old the celebration.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that one actually was for my daughter.
Yeah.
I think it was the week leading into that game. We were playing MacArthur and I can't remember what movie it was. I think it was off a movie and she, come up to me and said, "Hey dad, if you score this weekend, make sure you do this celebration." Yeah, I ended up scoring a pretty good goal that day. So yeah, it was nice. I was able to run over to her in the crowd and have that moment with Izzy and Sophia, who both wanted me to do it. And yeah, it was nice.
Ollie, thank you for jumping on the show, mate. And it was unreal to be able to unpack a mind of a great athlete, and anyone listening, I'm sure, will take a lot of inspiration out of this. So thank you.
Great. Thanks for having me on the show, mate.